Okay, let's get started with what's going on in the world today. See if this is the year of extinction. Hopefully not. Hopefully we can all continue at least one more year. Okay, we got a lot of things going on. We got a couple wars, one in the Pacific, the other one in East Europe, and maybe we'll have a couple more. Who knows? It's going to be a fun year for wars. Okay, and the war that I'm talking about is Ukraine specifically. There's a lot of saber rattling, and people think we are going to go to war. The armies are preparing for one apparently for invasion, the other one for defense. And the question is, what is this war about? I like that from a movie. What was it, The Reds, where this guy was in Russia in the Soviet Union, and he was a newsman, and they asked him, "What is this war about?" And they thought he was going to give an entire speech. Warren Beatty. He just stands up and he says, "Profits," and then sits down. That's it. That's all wars about profits, right? Okay, so here's Ukraine. Here's the map. I showed this the other day. Okay, and what you got is the big bear there. That's Russia, known as the UFFSR, the Union of Fewer and Fewer Socialist Republics. Nothing has changed with Russia. All these countries today, they used to be part of the Soviet Union, most of them. And little by little, they've left the circle, the influence of the Russians, like Poland there and the Romania and so on. And then you have Ukraine there. You can see it's completely encircled by the Russians. The green areas, those are essentially in Russian hands. And there's a little region there that I marked myself. That's not really part of the map. I marked it myself. That's that green line that goes between Ukraine and a country known as Moldova. Okay, and that region, you might start hearing about it in the near future if there is a war, because those people there have formed a country of their own, and it's known as Transnistria. Okay, and here is a picture of that. It's that region there that I pointed out. Okay, it's a very long strip, thin strip, and all these people are really pro-Russian, okay? And they're right in between Ukraine and Moldova, and that might become a region that also, that they can put troops in there and might enter the picture. So you better look it up. Transnistria might be a participant if there is a war. But again, the question we should ask is, what is this war about? Okay, is this a war about, because you can see, Ukraine is completely encircled. Okay, so, you would think that, well, it's about Ukraine, obviously. Well, I can give you a different perspective. I don't think it's got to do so much with Ukraine. Okay, Ukraine is like the excuse. Okay, and I think this war is about something else. You had the First World War, and it was everyone against the Germans. And you have the Second World War, and it was everyone against the Germans. And this war is going to have a casualty, not Ukraine, Germany. This is the Third World War, and again, the victim will be Germany. Okay? Germany is going to be the big loser here. That's my feeling. That's my impression. Okay, Germany's going to be the big loser. No matter how Germany plays its cards, it's in trouble. Okay, because it's got a lot of dealings with the Russians and also with the Chinese, by the way. And the United States wants that stopped. Okay, and the Germans don't like that. Don't like the Americans imposing on them, telling them what to do with their business, especially when it's so vital to them. And I think this war has to do more with separating Germany from this world in which they deal with the East, and putting Germany completely in the West. Another star on the flag, essentially. Germany and France. So in that sense, it's different than the First and Second World War. But I think Germany and France, they have a lot of dealings with the East, and I think the politicians in the West want that stopped. And so I think the casualty here will be Germany. And just time will tell if there is a war. There's another possibility. In fact, there's a couple possibilities as far as I can think. One of them is that maybe it's already in the works to try to overthrow the government in Ukraine. That would help some of these governments save face. They wouldn't have to choose sides, because if there's a change of government in Ukraine, and that government not necessarily has to be pro-Russian, it could be a little more even-handed, maybe it's moderate, and it takes no sides and it just stays calm. There is no war. And so if that happens, well, maybe everybody saves face and there is no war. On the other hand, if the Russians don't invade, the Americans will say, okay, no problem. We'll continue putting weapons there and try to recruit slowly and slowly, see if we can get the Ukrainians to join NATO. Okay, so they're kind of forcing the issue on the Russians. And if, on the other hand, Russia invades, well, they lose Germany and France because those countries will have a tougher time remaining neutral. And so I think if there's an invasion of some kind, I think Germany and France will lose. Those will be the big losers. And yeah, possibly Ukraine loses something, but nobody cares about Ukraine. Ukraine's not that important economically in the world, first of all. And militarily, it would help the Americans if they could put their troops in Ukraine and put it as part of NATO, but that's like a wish. And let me give you another dream, something that might happen, and that is, let's assume there is a war, and because of the war, the Russians economically start falling backwards, because everybody cuts ties with them, and so they lose a lot of business out there. So what happens? Let us assume that there is a coup d'etat in Moscow. Let's say they overthrow the anti-Western government. Well, that would be so bad. If you think about it, it'd be nice if the Russians were friends with the Americans, with the Europeans. We were all one big family, right? That's better than having these enemies there. Wouldn't that be nice if we all were friends? And then the only enemy would remain China. And maybe that would be a matter of time before China collapses as well. And on the other hand, there could be also a civil war in the United States. And that takes precedence over what happens in Europe. That's to think about. Okay, there are many possibilities, I think. Okay, moving on here. Fellow says, you cannot transmit. This is in relation to the moon, whether the moon landings happened the other day. Several people, in fact, had several things to say about the moon landings. This is one of them. And he said several things. I just picked up his fifth point there because I thought it was the most important of the ones that he made, the one that can be analyzed, the more objective. And so he says, you cannot transmit live television from the lunar surface with the power output they had available in LEM-6. Okay, you cannot survive in a 0.00001 torr vacuum using a spacecraft developed in 1969. We have nothing even today that could withstand such a powerful vacuum. A lot of people think this way, okay? A lot of people out there believe that, we can't withstand the vacuum of space. We don't have spacesuits to withstand it. Other people talk about the radiation, that just zaps you, and that there is no way, a lot of flat earthers especially, the flat earthers, and they believe that humans can't go into space because of all these things. We can't stand the vacuum. We get zapped. Maybe the magnetic field affects us. Different things. And so they have this notion that we can't go into space. Okay, so first thing I want to show is the following for this gentleman here who was a visitor, and it's this. He might want to do a research on this subject. I did quite a bit of it in the past. I do have the papers written by the people who made the Glenn Research Center, okay, and why they built it the way it is with the vacuum, that level that they achieve on a regular basis. And here it is. It says the chamber can reach a vacuum level of what? 4 times 10 to the minus 6 torr. Not very, not the highest of vacuum. It's called high vacuum. Then you have ultra high vacuum, which is above the minus 7 range, minus 7 torr range. Okay, so this is not ultra high vacuum. And the moon is at 10 to the minus 11, according to 3 of the probes that went out there and measured the vacuum level on the surface of the moon. And the solar wind is a little even thinner. It's a minus 12 torr. So thereabouts. It's a very high vacuum, ultra high vacuum, what they call. And so the question is, why would they build this testing center in Ohio at 10 to the minus 6? I mean, the astronauts are going to go into the 10 to the minus 11. And so the couple of papers that were written when they built this facility explain all that. They said you don't need to test an astronaut at minus 11 level, minus 11 torr level. You do not need to do that. Already at minus 6, you will die. Okay, please understand that first. You don't need to go to minus 11. So, and then the lack of pressure at minus 11 to minus 6 is not that significant when you're talking about humans, especially when they're, when they're covered by their suits. It's not like they're going to be exploding because suddenly you went from minus 6 to minus 11. High vacuum already is pretty good vacuum to test a human being. You do not need to take them to ultra high vacuum. But if you go to ultra high vacuum, there's very little difference from a health point of view from minus 6, minus 7 to the minus 11, minus 12 range. Okay, so all I can do is show you where to look for the information, and there are several papers written on this, okay, on this subject. But talking about that, let me get rid of this. Talking about that subject, here we have the Chinese, and they recently went out into space, and they're in the middle of space. What vacuum level do you think these people are experiencing there? Assuming you believe that this was not done in Chinese Hollywood, okay? These guys are working in outer space, okay? And, or so they claim, so China claims. And nobody questioned that. The Americans didn't question it, the Russians didn't question it. Nobody's questioning that these guys were not in outer space. They do have, ways of detecting whether this is true or not, with telescopes and so on. These guys are working out there in outer space. And the question is, what vacuum level do you think these people are subjected to? And if they're in the middle of space, you're talking about, again, minus 10, minus 11, minus 12 range, torr, right? Range. And so, you really got to do a little more research on vacuum levels. And people say a lot of this. They maybe read something written by a flat earther maybe, and they say, oh, here it is. No, you got to do a little bit of research if you're really going to hold an opinion. And, I work with vacuum quite a bit. All I can tell you is, humans can, with the suits on, right, can withstand minus 6, minus 7 level. And they did so all the way till the 60s. They didn't send these guys out there without their clothes on. Even Gagarin, the guy who went around the earth and so on, all these people were, with suits inside their vehicles. So to say that humans cannot withstand that, they do test them at this Glenn Center. They put a guy in there in this chamber, and they pull this thing down to minus 6 level. And, to say that he can't withstand it, even with the equipment we have today, with the suits we have today, it's ignorance. That's all it is. You got to kill your ignorance. Go out there, do research, and you'll find out that, that's, with the suits we've got today, we can withstand the lack of pressure, up to the minus 6, minus 7, minus 11 level, torr level. Okay, another comment on moon. A lot of moonies, lunars today, okay? Paul says, pseudoscience cultists will believe in such nonsense as the moon hoax because they are stupid, gullible, moral, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I mean, the question is, did man go to the moon? And a lot of people out there don't believe it. And so they raise a lot of issues like, what about this and what about that? And here I'll give you one fellow. He said the following. Let me remove this fellow here. This fellow says the following, okay? He says, I remember seeing the astronauts jumping around on the moon allegedly. Then recall that I was taught that gravity on the moon was something like 1/6 of what it was on the Earth. So I expected they would be jumping several feet off the ground easily. That's not what I saw. Really pretty weak jumps. And you can see it there. The guy jumps, maybe a couple feet off the ground, as he jumps around and falls back down. And so people say, see, this was done in Hollywood. Well, all I can tell you is the following. For all those people who believe in these things and these arguments, okay, here's a list of arguments just pulled off the top of my head, okay? I didn't do great research on it. I just pulled it off the top of my head. And here it is, the errors of cosmic proportions, I call them, okay? No stars in the background. Some people say that. There were no stars in the background, so this was done in Hollywood or wherever. The flag waved, gravity jumps, as I just discussed, okay? Shadows cast by the astronauts. And I put a new one. I don't know if this is true, but I put that one in there. The astronaut takes off his helmet. Okay, that could have been done on the moon, right? And, a lot of this, these conspiracy theories came out in 1978 with a movie called Capricorn 1, which I saw. I liked the movie. Not that I believed it, but it's a nice movie because it shows how these astronauts are removed from the capsule. They're put into a center, and they say, look, we got to do it without you guys because that vehicle is screwed up, and we're just going to send the vehicle out into outer space just in case so nobody gets hurt, right? and then bring it back, and you guys are heroes. You just have to act in front of the TV right now that you're on the moon, that you're on, this was a Mars expedition, that you're on Mars. Well, the story goes that when the vehicle comes back, it explodes in space. So it's destroyed, and now they have to kill the astronauts because because if they appear in real life, they say, "Oh, weren't you on that capsule? Weren't you dead?" And so a lot of these a lot of these conspiracies came, at least took a lot of force because of that movie. Okay, and there were a couple more movies after that with the same theme. And yeah, the issue that I raise against those arguments is the following. Okay, and I just want you to bear with me a second. If Hollywood were to make a movie, okay, in fact, I think it happened, where the Romans are fighting, I don't know, the Greeks or the Germans or whoever, and the guy's with his sword and he's banging away, and suddenly you see that he's got a Rolex watch, the actor, you know, it screws the whole movie because the guy's waving there his sword and he's got a Rolex watch. Now, how would people in the movies look at that? A big failure, you know, that's of cosmic proportions. And so here's the question for you. Do you think that the people who made the movie of humans going to the moon, do you think they would have made so many errors? I mean, you would think that they're professional. At least they know exactly, you know, how physics behaves out there. They know a lot of physicists and so on out there are going to say, oh, but hold it, how about this and how about that? So if they made this movie in Hollywood, right, with all these errors, well, someone's got to be fired because you would think that somehow they would have cleaned all this stuff out before showing the movie to the public, right? In other words, imagine they allow this movie to go to the public with so many errors. No stars in the background, the astronaut not jumping high enough, you know, then you have what, the shadows are not right, you know, all this stuff that they find out, the flag waving. They wouldn't have made so many errors. The more errors people find, the less believable is their argument. Because what they're saying is that all these guys in Houston, NASA, who made this fake movie, you know, to convince the public of something, that they missed all these errors. They're so stupid that the director of the movie just made so many errors, no one caught it, and they just passed it on to the public, to millions of people. So think about that. I mean, if you find one error and some minute errors, well, they could have missed this. The director didn't see that there was this pebble on the ground that wasn't supposed to be there, or something like that. But to say no stars, the flag wave, the shadows are wrong, and blah, 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 the jumping is wrong. If there's so many errors, you have a problem, not the movie. There's something you don't understand about physics. Okay, that's my 5 cents worth there. Okay, another fellow, I think along the same line, says, does the moon revolve around its own axis? Tesla did not think so. And there's Nick, good old Nick. And yeah, essentially the moon doesn't revolve, it doesn't spin. What it does is always shows the same face towards the earth. And don't be fooled by the bright light on the moon that's rolling around. Look at the arrow. The arrow tells you that the same face is being pointed towards the earth at all times. Okay, the light that you see there, the light shadow, that's from the sun. Okay, so the moon always shows the same face to the earth because it does not spin. It's what is known as a synchronous satellite. Okay, so yeah, Tesla was right on that issue. One of the few things he was right about. Tesla was not a scientist, by the way. He was an inventor. He was a technologist. He was a lab boy. That's all he was. And he invented some stuff, patented some stuff, got into a big war with Edison. One guy with Westinghouse, the other guy with Edison was going to be General Electric. And apparently Tesla lost a couple of his arguments, a couple of his patents. You know, Marconi outbid him, won a case against him. Then the U.S. government brought a case against Marconi and won against Marconi, saying that his patent was not valid. They said that many years later, after he had already won the Nobel Prize and beat the hell out of Tesla and so on. So yeah, it's a great world. You got to look at that whole story. It's really funny how all that history turned out. Okay, here's another issue. Fellow says, black-eyed babies stronger than other babies, may be new mutations, a new human species. Very strange things happen. Some people believe that we're going to continue evolving, and who knows into what. Maybe into robots. You know, what can we expect in the future? Or are we it? Are we as perfect as we will ever get? And that's my 5 cents worth on that. I'm saying we're already there. We're as perfect as we'll ever be. We have all the intelligence the maximum intelligence that Mother Nature, God, the devil, and all of them put together, Father Universe, that they can give us. There is no higher intelligence in the universe, in heaven or in hell, than the human mind. This is it, guys. I know you believe in super intelligence, something out there. No, this is it. We're as intelligent as there is anything in the universe. We have the ability to reason, to understand whatever God, the devil, Mother Nature, Father Universe wishes to teach us. Okay, so if one of these fellows, supernatural beings, comes over here and teaches us something, we have the ability to understand it. And that's as intelligent as it gets anywhere in the universe. So if you're looking for more intelligence because you feel that you've been gypped, you got it wrong. This is it. It doesn't get any better than us. Okay, that's the maximum the universe can give you. So all those people who think about super intelligence and that there's some being out there that have super intelligence and they can come here and show us all their technology, which is mind blowing and so on. Too much Hollywood movies. Take a break. That's what I say to you, okay? Okay, here we have a fellow talking about climate change. Says the reality of climate change. Is the ozone layer actually trashed? The sun is definitely much hotter on your skin. Winters are warmer. I don't know. It probably has never come to Germany because it's been cold here. This whole year, we haven't seen the sun. It's just been ridiculously cloudy. Is methane rapidly releasing from Siberia and other ocean floor? Permian, I guess. He's looking at that. Is this a rapid warming? Before grand solar minimum, or some other mechanism puts us into an ice age? And I don't think we're going to see an ice age like maybe 14,000 years ago. Those things take time, a lot of time, and a lot of it has to do with, again, pollution in the air. A lot of it contributed by humans, obviously. We're 8 billion people throwing garbage up there in the air, right? Among them, our own respiration every second of the day. So, climate does change, and we do have some effect on the climate. In fact, a single human being already should be changing the climate. His tiny grain of sand, but he's contributing to the beach. Just by breathing and exhaling, he's already changing the climate. You may say, well, that doesn't change the climate much. Yes, a drop of water in the ocean, correct. But he's already changing the climate. And so does the climate change? Every second of the day, every minute, every second in the life on Earth, in the history of Earth, the climate has changed. So the issue is, should we be worried about it? And my answer to you is, why should you worry about it if it's a very, very slow process? By the time it happens, you won't be around for sure. And I don't mean necessarily because there's got to be an extinction, which I think will happen. But even if you last, if you're 20 years old, I don't think it's going to happen in the next 60 years. You're going to be 80 years old, maybe 90, maybe 100. And whatever climate change there is, it's not going to kill you, for sure. So I don't think you have to worry about climate at all. A lot of this climate change has to do with jobs, with creating jobs, and not so much with the danger to humanity, okay? Again, my take on that. So if so, is that mechanism natural, or have we done all this before? Again, I think it's a natural mechanism in the sense that, every person contributes to climate change just by breathing. In that sense, there's not much we can do about it. We contribute to climate change simply by breathing. Okay, another fellow says, they know, talking about the rich and filthy rich and affluent, they know they're not going to space, probably, unless they already have. And just don't tell us cattle that man has been traveling the star for some time. He thinks a possibility that the rich and powerful have already traveled through space, but they're not going to tell us. You know what I mean? Because maybe we all want to get on the spaceship and leave the Earth. So that just leaves running off to their underground cities and hoping to wait it out. And they have the gopher holes. People believe the rich and powerful have all these cities underground, and if we could just find them, we could join them there, Maybe, again, too many movies. That's the problem with all these people. They probably knew you didn't want to be around for whatever went down and just decided to go do something else with the time we have left. So a lot of people believe this, that the rich and powerful, the Illuminati, the New World Order folk, and the Skull and Bones, and all these secret organizations of rich people, and what they're doing is creating all these secret cities underground. They're going to go down there when the shit hits the fan. All I can do is tell you my 5 cents worth. It doesn't matter if people like Trump or Bill Gates, go underground to their private city? Are they going to go down there alone? How did they build that city? Did they build that city by themselves with a little shovel, or did they hire a company to do the city underground? And of course, you would say that they probably hired someone. A lot of people out there to work underground because you got to dig, you got to build the installations down there in the bottom floor, and then you got to live there. And the question is, Bill Gates going to live there alone? Maybe he takes lots of people down there with him, like to help out when things, when everybody on the surface is dead, so they can now come out of there. Well, the question is, what control does Bill Gates have over those people at that point? Because at that point, money is no more. What control does he have? Can he order them to do something, say, or I won't pay you your salary? No kidding. Yeah, I mean, once you're down there, you can't have people who are not part of your loved ones, maybe, that's a good way of putting it. I mean, if you're paying them, if they're salaried people who work for you for money, that deal's off once money is no more. So the rich people have no control over the people they hired down there to help them or to be servants or to whatever. And that's not counting the people they hired to make the hole, who know where the hole is and will say, oh, I want to go down in that hole because I know what that hole is for. And besides the fact that these people would spread the word right now and tell other people, oh, by the way, Bill Gates built a hole there in the middle of South Dakota. So this notion that all these cities are underground are people who watch too many Hollywood movies. Okay, going down under, right, is not going to help you survive if you're going to need people to help you, people you don't know, people whom you are paying salaries to. That's the first issue. Then the second one is to build that hole down there. Someone else knows, and that person's going to tell some other people, and so on and so forth. So we should all know where all these holes are right now. Okay. Now, could there be one hole, some person out there who did it? Yeah, it could have been. And again, that person has to watch out because this is not a question of hiding. It's a question of securing your future. How do you secure your future other than with money? And if money is no more, what future have you secured for yourself? Okay, so keep all this in mind. You got to think this over. At least that's my line of thinking, my train of thought. Okay. Another fellow says, isn't technology just a synonym of tool? In a way, yeah. That's what technology is. Manufacturing is tool, right? Innovations are not technology. Yeah, correct. And that's why I define innovation and invention. I separate these two terms. And I'm saying invention has to do with objects, whereas innovation has to do with concepts. That's essentially the difference. Invention belongs to physics. Okay? Invention is not how you do something more efficiently. Invention is a gadget that does something. And that has to do with physics. Okay, so I separate those two, and that's why we need to separate these two words, because only invention belongs to physics, innovation doesn't. Okay, and it says technological progress will slow down soon. Yeah, in fact, I'm saying that there's been no invention, no real invention since the computer. Anything else is just putting things together, like the smartphone. What is that? It's an all-in-one. It's all these inventions that already were on the books. You have a radio there, you have a television set there, you have a telephone there, you have a computer there, you have all in one. And on top of that, it's portable. That's what we always wanted. There is, and that's not an invention, it's just putting several inventions together. So we have no real invention today. The age of invention is over. Okay? Whatever invention you see out there, maybe to make money, it's cosmetic. It's minor. It's not a real invention. Like the telephone was an invention because it put people to work. The car was an invention. The airplane was an invention. It put tons of people to work because industries were built upon those inventions. People wanted to have those things. They wanted the airplanes. They wanted refrigerators. They wanted TV sets. And once we invented all that, we're done. We don't have any mind-blowing inventions today. Nothing, especially what I'm referring to is that puts people to work. Manufacturing is dead. Never will it rise again. I don't care what you invent today. You might make a buck, invent a pet rock, and you start selling. Say, oh, I invented the pet rock. Great. You make some money. You say, well, that's an invention. Yeah, I guess you could call it an invention. I'm talking about stuff that you can use that people want by the billions out there because suddenly, everybody needs one. We have all the things we always wanted. Now you want a better computer? Yeah, they'll invent one. You want a better phone? Yeah, you can have it. But a phone is a phone, And a TV is a TV is a TV, and a computer is a computer, a computer. Nothing's going to change that. You can't invent the chip again because the chip's already been invented, and so on down the line. So this notion that, once we reach, like people like Kurzweil say, the singularity, there's going to be just exponential growth of technology. What technology? What invention? What are you going to? What is it that you need? What is it that you want in your life that's not already out there? I mean, maybe a machine that takes you to the fourth dimension, that would be an invention if you can make it through the fourth dimension. But a vehicle is a vehicle of vehicle. I mean, what do we have? Flying cars, is that an invention? I mean, people dream a lot and they watch too many movies and they don't have their feet planted on the ground. Manufacturing is dead. It'll never rise again. It's advanced nations, anywhere from 15 to 20% of their GDP and labor force is manufacturing and dying, slowly being smaller and smaller and smaller of GDP and of labor. So even if you invent, I don't know, something unimaginable, because people cannot even tell me what they would invent. Because if you can tell me, if you can dream, I'm not asking you to build it. I'm asking you to dream about an invention that doesn't exist, that people would buy by the billions. If you can conceptualize it, you're a genius. Okay, if you can conceptualize something that everybody wants that we need, we already have all that. All the stuff that we needed, we already have to make our lives comfortable. Okay, we have the couch, we have the bed, we have the table, we have the the stove, we have the refrigerator for our beer, very important in my place, in my life. We have everything we need. What else do you need? The kings of old, the pharaohs, they didn't have all this stuff. They didn't have toilets. They didn't have bathtubs or showers. We've got everything we need. We don't need anything else. That's why we're not inventing anything, because the guy who invents something today really has to go out of his way to really come up with an invention. That's how difficult it is to invent something new. Look at the gaming industry. What else is there? It's game after game after game is just the same game as existed before, just some minor changes, and there it goes. So no, there are no new inventions, and there never will be inventions that put people to work. Okay, that's the criterion. Okay. Fellow says, is it rational to debate history? Rational to debate history. For example, whether or not Mao killed people or whether or not we went to the moon, it seems irrational because it is all based on saw and heard. In other words, past tense, right? And all I can say is, science deals with two aspects. One is physics, the other one is philosophy. And I don't do philosophy here, but that is the other branch of science. And what does that include? Well, philosophy includes history. What is it? Well, you're trying to figure out why someone did something in the past. And again, like I said last time, I haven't seen Napoleon. I haven't shaken hands with him. And so does that mean Napoleon never was around? He never existed? I'm sure that in his day, he was there. And how do I know that? Well, I know that because other people passed that information down to me. Like, they used to pass all these stories from father to son in the tribes and the old clans, and a lot of them filled with mythology again. But the deal is that's how they passed it on from generation to generation. And we invented something known as writing, and through writing we do it today. And so if you want to know what happened in the past, well, you don't have to hear it from word of mouth, which we do as well in school, but you can read a book and it tells you what happened in the past. And I don't mean that you have to believe, whether Washington, chopped a cherry tree or something like that. Maybe you don't want to believe that. But to deny that Washington existed, 200 years ago, that's a different step that you're taking there. Okay. So certain things you don't want to believe, but certain other, you're going to deny that Napoleon never happened, and that Julius Caesar never happened. So what are all these people writing about in the past? They pass this information continuously from one generation to the next. We got it today. You're going to say that Julius Caesar never happened? And so this is where I see the problem with the reasoning that these people have. They are throwing the baby with the wash water in this case, right? They're saying, look, I haven't been there, I haven't touched it, I haven't seen it, so it never happened. The nuclear weapons were never dropped on Japan. JFK never was assassinated because he didn't exist to begin with, and so on and so forth. No, at some point you got to draw the line and say, some things you got to accept because that is our history. And I'll give you a specific point, a good analogy here. We find, for the question this person asked, we go into the rock, to the layer of rock, and we drill in there and we find a bone. Turns out it's a dinosaur bone, big bone suddenly, and say, well, this animal doesn't exist today that has this head. And you say, well, maybe it's a fluke, maybe it's an elephant who had arthritis. Okay, now you find another one similar to that, and another one, and another one. You find several of them, and you can't find these animals around. So there, history, right? Well, you got to explain that, especially the layer of rock in which they were found. You say, well, hold it, how much dirt fell on top of these guys? Well, 60 million years worth of dirt. And so this guy was buried way beneath. That is history, history of life on Earth. And so now you see this bone in the layer of rock. You pull it out, and now you got to explain it. And so in that sense, yeah, you got to. History does play some kind of role, at least in science in that sense. And for sure, in the same way, you can translate that into history and say, look, if I find a bone, like the other day they found the remains of Richard III, the King Richard III, who fought at Bosworth. And, they find a bone and they say, oh, we found a bone. And they checked it out with DNA and they said they confirmed that's him. Likewise, they found the family, the royal family of Russia, the Tsar, Nicholas and his family. And so they get these bones. These people are not alone around, but those bones belong to someone. It coincides with the history that we read. We have to say these people were there. You can't say, oh, I don't believe in the Romanovs were ever there because I wasn't there. I didn't shake hands with them. So yeah, history is part of science. The behavioral part, the why they did something, why they behaved this way, why did they go to this place, why did they not go to another place, that part is the science part. Okay, and so yeah, you can't just deny all of it and say, no, I'm not going to accept any of that. Okay.